It gives me great pleasure to be here today as your Chief Executive. Arthritis Ireland has been home to me in my work for the last 18 years, so almost half of Arthritis Ireland's 40 years. And I'm, I suppose, hugely grateful for the opportunity to lead this amazing charity. I'm very passionate about the work that we do, about all of the amazing people, many of whom I see before me this morning, that are part of our great organisation. So what I'm going to do is take you through a little whistle-stop tour, if we will, for the next few minutes. And I suppose I have to start today's proceedings with putting up a picture of this amazing person, Professor Barry Bresnahan, and I can see people in the audience who are maybe have worked with him as a colleague or who were a patient of his. And if it wasn't for Barry Bresnahan, there would be no Arthritis Ireland, because it was he, along with his peers, that established the charity as the Arthritis Foundation of Ireland, as it was then, back in May 1981. And at that first meeting, he outlined his vision for an organisation, that would dedicate itself to raising funds to invest in research and to develop the Irish rheumatology landscape. And I suppose, from those humble beginnings, first of all, we used to meet in the Board Fáilte office on Baggot Street, I believe. Arthritis Ireland has grown into a multifaceted organisation that has made a huge difference to the lives of thousands of people living with arthritis in Ireland. And that's really what we're all about today. We're about celebrating all of the many achievements of Arthritis Ireland over those 4 decades. So I've put up a little timeline here. When I was preparing for this, I said I'd have a little look back at some of the kind of key moments, and they're not an exclusive set of key moments, but I just wanted to talk to you about a few things. So I already mentioned that our beginnings were all the way back in 1981. We would have been celebrating last year had it not been for COVID, but we're delighted to be here today. Our first branches, our volunteer branches, the first ones were established in 1983. I believe it was Limerick that was our first branch of Arthritis Ireland. And, our branches have always been about supporting people in local communities around the country. So we're very thankful that we have almost a 40-year history of a branch network and volunteers in Ireland. If we go up to the 90s then, we actually arrived at our present home in Clonwilliam Square, which is actually just a short walk away from where we are today in the Aviva Stadium, and we took on our first staff in the organisation. It was actually in 2004 that we became Arthritis Ireland. We undertook a kind of an extensive exercise, and a lot of charities were doing that at the time in terms of looking at their name and looking at what they stood for. And we became Arthritis Ireland in 2004. It was actually in 2006 that we first delivered our Living Well. We first started, I suppose, having had some delivery in the 90s, but really the Living Well with Arthritis programme, our 6-week self-management programme, started back in 2006, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later on. 2008, we established our national helpline. And in 2011, one of the huge achievements of Arthritis Ireland was the establishment of the chairs of rheumatology. And we had then the first appointments into those roles in 2013 and 2015. And we also then launched our new strategic plan in 2019. Okay, so there are just a few, I suppose, moments in Arthritis Ireland's history over the last 40 years. But I'm going to take you, right up to now, because we could spend a lot of time talking about the past, but I think it's important to come right up to the present. Our motivation to support people with arthritis and to improve their quality of life, has found really renewed expression in our new strategic plan as an organisation, and that really sets out the roadmap for how we are going to support people with arthritis over the coming years. It puts people living with arthritis at the very centre of everything that we do. And it's aptly captured in our vision, a better world for people living with arthritis today and a world without arthritis tomorrow. So ultimately, we are looking to the long term where arthritis is not something that people have to live with. we're ultimately moving, we are hopeful that in the future there will be a world without arthritis. It's an ambitious plan, that we have to operate in to achieve this, but we know that there'll be challenges along the way. There'll be things that we have to deal with. For example, who would have foreseen a few years ago that we'd be dealing with the global pandemic? So we don't always have sight of the challenges that we will face. And then we look at our mission. And really our mission as an organisation is to ensure that every person living with arthritis in Ireland is supported to live a full and active life, having access to appropriate health services and treatments. And we want to ensure that people have an enhanced quality of life, minimising, the devastating effects that arthritis can have on lives. And many of you before me today are actively engaged in providing some of those supports and services to people living with arthritis throughout the country. So, I mentioned already the Living Well with Arthritis programme that we established in 2006. And I suppose when it comes to speaking about the services that Arthritis Ireland provides, there's no doubt that the jewel in the crown really is this programme. This internationally acclaimed evidence-based programme gives people the skills, the tools to help people manage their disease and take control of their lives. And I know from looking around the room here today, many of you have delivered the programs in your community, have been participants in the program. And if there's people online who are watching, and if you haven't already done this amazing course, do consider signing up. We'll have new courses happening in the new year, so please do consider joining up. But don't just take my word for it. Here is some feedback and some quotes from some of our course participants. And I actually think all of the people I have pictured here are actually in the room today, which is fantastic to see as well. So first of all, David. I see David out there. So David, a quote from David, who attended the program some years ago. The key to me was the knowledge that I gained. Anne-Marie. It taught me that I was in control of my disease, not the other way around. And then Claire, my dear friend Claire, who's sitting in the front row here. The course reinforced in me the importance of a positive attitude and helped me to set goals and achieve them. So I'll move on now to another one of our stalwarts of our services in Arthritis Ireland, our national helpline, which was established in 2008. It's a confidential service that provides people with support on a whole range of issues. And we are so extremely lucky in the organisation to have a dedicated team of volunteers working to provide this much needed support. In particular, this service really came into its own during the pandemic. And where we really had an increased number of calls and contacts to the helpline and indeed our online groups as well. So I think, every year we take almost 2,000 calls or 2,000 contacts to these services. And it's that lifeline sometimes that people need in order to have those questions or even just to speak to somebody who has walked the walk or who understands. So in Arthritis Ireland, we have this phrase, movement is the best medicine, and I've always really liked it because we know that it's not always easy to think about or engage in exercise when you're experiencing pain and fatigue. But we do know that it's one of the most important things that a person can do to help manage their arthritis. But in order to make that a reality, we have to, as an organisation, provide those programs and services to people to support them. So, for example, in 2015, we partnered with the Irish Society of Chartered Physiotherapists to develop and implement the Be Active with Arthritis programme, which is a 6-week physiotherapist-led programme. And that's been rolled out around the country since that time. During COVID, we had a successful delivery of that online as well. But we know too that people need a range of opportunities and options to get physically active. So our branch network and our volunteers have been very active throughout Ireland in providing a diverse range of options, from walking groups to acroaerobics to yoga to chair exercise classes. So if people want to get physically active, there are options for people there. And I think one of the things that people always say to me, it's the opportunity to meet other individuals, other people who are living with arthritis. That shared experience is also really much part of that participation in a class. Of course, we must also recognise our need to continue to raise awareness and understanding of arthritis too. Despite the fact that the term arthritis is probably very well known, it's not that well understood. So every year, we develop and deliver various campaigns to that end. So some of the work we would do would be in the area of disease awareness. It might be in relation to physical activity, mental health. For example, in the past few years, we have done some work on the raising awareness of biosimilars. And of course, we participate then and roll out our National Arthritis Week and World Arthritis Day events, which bring that really pertinent focus to all things arthritis. I started this morning by remembering Professor Barry Bresnahan, and one of his dreams was to establish chairs of rheumatology. And Arthritis Ireland raised over 2.5 million to achieve this goal. Unfortunately, he passed away before he saw this dream realised, but in 2013 and 2015, we saw the appointment of Professor Jerry Wilson and Professor Ursula Fearon, who are with us today. And we now have 2 world-class arthritis research centres in UCD and Trinity College. And we'll hear more about the important work of those centres later on today. And lastly, if people can see that, I just thought this would be useful to put up to kind of really demonstrate the breadth of activity within Arthritis Ireland. And this is always an interesting exercise that we undertake every year. And we look at, the numbers of people that we're serving in our community, the engagement and the reach that we have into our communities of people living with arthritis. We look at how many self-management and physical activity courses that we've delivered. We look at our contacts to our helpline and our online groups. And we look at our online engagement as well, which has obviously taken on growing importance in the last number of years. And also we acknowledge and we celebrate our volunteer community, for whom lots of these services wouldn't be delivered without their commitment at local level to delivering these services. So this is probably an opportune time to share with you just our impact over 2021, and we'll be shortly looking to 2022 to share an updated set of impact statistics with you as well. So that's my little whistle-stop tour of Arthritis Ireland and where we are up to this point. Thank you for listening. And we're now going to move on with the next part of this morning's proceedings. Thank you.